Yeah, what's going on, family? It's your man B Miles coming to you live once again with another live stream. I know I just jumped off of here, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you I had to reschedule, but so this the man, you know me, he just contacted me, so everything is all the go and stuff like that right about now. So y'all can come back inside of the stream and stuff like that. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna let the chat come back once again. Let everybody come inside of the chat, you know what I'm saying? Greet one another. This is definitely going to be, you know what I'm saying, another great live stream right here. So I definitely will say, you know what I mean, pay close attention to the live stream. And another thing as well, when you come inside of the chat, I'm definitely going to say, keep it respectful. We're not here to argue and debate with one another. We're not trying to challenge one another or try to, prove who's right, who's wrong. We here to share information. And I definitely will say, like, eat the fish, spit out the bones. And I'll say whatever resonates with you, take it, but at the same time, be respectful. If it doesn't resonate, keep it, I mean, to yourself, but just be respectful because it's a lot of things coming down the pipe, and we just want y'all to know what's going on. So I see Sensei TV is back, Adrian McCoy, JR Meadows. Yeah, smash that like button. Like I said, we got Citizen Man right here. That's here right up on the chat and stuff like that. And he's gonna be bringing information, and I'm gonna be in the background while the brother talks. So like I said, it's good to see everybody. Mary Lane, D. Bellamy, Willie Rivers, Sophisticated Ignorance. Yes, it's good to see everyone back. And like I said, without further ado, I'm about what's going on. And my guest here tonight is Citizen Man. Welcome, brother. The floor is yours.
Yo, give me a second, bro. Give me 1 second. My son just woke up. Hold on.
Okay, I apologize. Like I said, though, family, definitely apologize for that little communication right there. But like I said, though, family, it's good to see, everybody that is on the chat. Like I said, we are back once again tonight. And yeah, I definitely will say it's been very cold. Hey Jane Dunn, hey Gary Clovia. Yeah, like I said, it's been a lot going on and stuff like that. I see the weather patterns. We definitely got to be mindful, man. It's definitely cold and stuff like that. So, like we told everybody, you definitely got to stay warm because this winter is definitely going to be brutal. Like I said, we definitely going to be bringing a lot of stuff tonight. So, without further ado, Citizen Man, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
All right. What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? There's a lot of things that I want to discuss, but I know I can't discuss them directly here on YouTube. But I um I noticed a pattern, right? We've seen what, four elections since 2016, and each time there's been, things happening. But each cycle, there's been less and less things happening. Where in 2016, they did it with busloads of people going from polling station to polling station, and then in 2018, there were less buses. In 2020, there were no buses, and they had to resort to other means. And those other means. Hang on a second, B Miles. I'm sorry, man. My man just woke up like as soon as I started talking. Dang.
Okay, y'all, we apologize for that. And like I said, it's still going to be a lot of information, coming to y'all tonight because you really got to pay attention. You know what I mean to like what they're saying, certain things in code in the mainstream media. The mainstream media right about now is it's very tricky, and if you're not aware, you can get caught up. But you can go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I got him settled. My bad. I'm sorry. I apologize for that, people. So what I was saying was in 2020 we saw the craziness go on, and we saw these, political offices be taken, and it was a lot of reports of this, these misgivings that were being reported all across the country, almost in every state. But you fast forward to 2022, and what happened is we still saw some of the misgivings, but it wasn't nearly as extensive as it was in 2020. So what I noticed in the pattern was there was a shortening or a cutting down of the amount of misgivings, let's just say that, that had been taking place in our political system. So obviously there was something being done behind the scenes, and I actually did a report about this where the National Guard was actually involved in the process, and they were there dressed in plain clothes as civilians, which I thought was which I also thought was pretty interesting, because I've never heard of the National Guard being on active operations and not wearing, not wearing their combat uniforms. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then when you go back to Trump's executive orders, then it all makes sense. Once the executive order was signed, military intervention was then authorized. And a lot of people that voted when they went out to the polling stations, a lot of those people that they met were military personnel, not just average civilians. So that's one thing to take note of. So that means there's involvement from higher powers, outside forces that are working on behalf of the people to ensure that the people's voices are recognized, if you know what I mean. I really got to be careful on how I talk about this. But I noticed a similar pattern with Black Lives Matter and the riots, right? Ever since 2014, Black Lives Matter has been, they've been hot on the presses. They've been on almost every news story with a black man getting killed by police. And it finally reached a head in 2020 when they just went all out and started burning down cities and shit. And my bad, pardon the language, started burning down cities and whatnot. And something happened where you started seeing reports of like busloads of people getting busted. They're finding weapons, explosives, riot shields, and all types of stuff on board these buses. And then come 2021, the media tried to get the Black Lives Matter riots going again, but they all ended up being kind of a dud. They were nowhere near as widespread as they were in 2020, which is another indication that their networks are being something's happening to their networks. Their networks aren't operating and functioning like they used to. So if you really step back and you pay attention to what's been going on, you'll see these major events happen, like 2020, from the riots to November and all that. But then you look at years following, you don't see the same level of insurgency taking place. Um, I really go into this stuff like when it comes to the November events and whatnot that we're not allowed to discuss on YouTube. I go into them in detail on my Rumble page. So if you guys really want to get the full spectrum, you know, explanations, you can get over to my Rumble page, and that's where you'll find all the information, all the slides, all the receipts, and everything else. But Trump was America's sweetheart up until 2015 when he decided he was going to run for president. And the reason for that was he was not a threat until he decided to seek out a position of political power in our government, perhaps the highest position of political power in our government. Not the highest position of power per se, because of course the bankers outrank the presidents by miles, but the highest political position of power. And once he did that, he had the ability to then coordinate and control the military as his duties as commander in chief. And the interesting thing is, because America has been in a declared state of war since, or a state of declared war since 9/11, that declared state of war has never been lifted or rescinded. So all presidential powers that apply to the military in a time of declared war, President Trump had those powers, and he used those powers against the political machine that has co opted our government and turned it into a system of rulership rather than a system of representation. Now, that's where a lot of people get confused when it comes to politics, because we've been taught to believe that these representatives are government officials. We use terms like government officials or politician, or terms like that, but really they're representatives of the people, meaning we vote for these people from our districts to represent the people of our district. So whatever the people in our districts decide we want politically, that's what our representatives should go to government and advocate for. A lot of people in poorer communities tend to vote for Democrats because the Democrats always campaign on fixing your economic situation, working to curtail these social ills that plague us all, et cetera, et cetera. So the people who are subjected to these social ills and live in these economically impoverished areas, they tend to want to vote for politicians who say that that's their agenda. But the problem is the Democratic Party is actually a party of foreign agents. What do I mean by that? Well, think about this. When the stimulus package was being proposed in 2020, the Republicans actually started out with a $5,000 proposal for a $5,000 stimulus for all Americans. How did they go from 5,000 to $600? Here's how. In order for the Republicans to get the stimulus package passed, they needed votes from the Democrats in order to get the stimulus package passed for the American people. The Republicans were ready and willing to do $5,000 for every taxpaying American. The Democratic Party said, we're not voting on it. So that means the people get nothing, or you lower that number from $5,000. So the next proposal was $3,000. Democrats did the same thing. They said, we're not voting on it. So the people get nothing unless you lower that number. They lowered the number to $2,500. Same story. $2,000. Same story. $1,200. Same story. And then they ended up settling for $600. And then they did another round. I think they did another round for another 600 or something like that. And then a few months later, they did the 1,400. Well, the media spun it as if President Trump was the one who didn't want to give the people the money, when it was the Democratic Party that didn't want to give the people the money. But like Brother B. Miles said, the media has a way of playing these tricks and spinning these stories around to make it seem like one side is guilty when it's the other side that's actually guilty. And back to my point about the Democratic Party being foreign agents, remember, this stimulus money was money that was supposed to go to American citizens. But then 2020 passes, Joe Biden and the Democrats take over, and what happens? They start dumping billions of dollars into Ukraine with no question. No fight, no nothing. Why? Because they are not the party that represents the American people. So every American that goes out and votes for a Democrat thinking that this person is going to go to Congress and advocate for them and represent them, they're sadly mistaken. And the proof couldn't be more obvious. I mean, what kind of political party would rather starve the American people out and give them the American taxpayer, the American tax dollars to foreign countries? Well, a party of foreign agents, obviously. And this is why when you look at the liberal propaganda in the media, a lot of it is anti-American, anti-white, all this nonsense, because they equate Americanism with whiteness, and they equate whiteness with racism. Thus, America is racist. That's how they play the trick in your mind. And because America is racist, the American people don't deserve anything. All these other suffering countries around the world, they deserve everything. That's the way they play the game. And if you look at the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party, what you'll find is over 40% of Democrats serving in Congress right now have dual citizenship. You know what that means? That means they're actually serving in our United States Congress as representatives of the people of this nation, and they hold citizenships in foreign countries. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. That means that foreign agents have taken over our government, and they've turned it into a system of rulership rather than a system of representation. This is why elections and voting is so important. This is why when Trump did the pardon, you remember when he was talking about doing a major pardon back in 2020, and he ended up pardoning Susan B. Anthony? That was symbolic to signal to the American people that this is a sacred right that you have to choose your own representatives. And the more people that sit on their hands and sit out the election process, all they do is leave the door open for these foreign agents to come in. Because you know who comes in and they vote in mass when they bring in these illegals and they go into these liberal cities like New York and LA?
Democrats.
These cities allow those illegal immigrants to vote. And you know what those illegal immigrants do? They go out and they vote. And then they end up getting representation that the American people don't want. That doesn't benefit the American people, but it benefits the illegal aliens. And that's because we're not getting involved. No amount of malfeasance in the process that these state boards are committing. No amount of malfeasance in the process can override the will of the people if enough people went out collectively and cast a ballot collectively. No amount. And that was evident in 2016, because in 2016 Hillary was supposed to be the winner. But what happened was the new voter, first time voter turnout for Trump reached an all-time high of 15%. And prior to Trump, the next president that had the highest new voter turnout was Barack Obama with 9%. So that lets you know the people who voted for Barack Obama voted for Trump and then some, and then an extra 6% on top of that. So Trump had the majority of support of the people. But because the media machine has such a loud voice and such control over the flow of information, to the unsuspecting American who isn't really politically involved, doesn't understand the deception, doesn't understand how the party lines are divided or anything, they would just listen to the media and think that Trump was this big bad guy and completely ignore all the decades of the media kissing his ass. And all of a sudden now he's this evil person that we shouldn't listen to. And what that resulted in was, because people have this, it's human nature. If you don't like someone, you're not going to want to listen to them, right? So the media's mission was to make people ignore what Trump was saying to us. And they did that by getting people to not like him. And what happened was that actually aided them in the 2020 thing with locking down the country and all that, because Trump said out of his own mouth, he said, if you don't have symptoms, don't get tested. And what did people do instead? All these healthy people went out and got tested because they didn't listen to the man. And because they went out and got tested, they were able to fabricate the numbers. And once they had a large enough case number, they could now start creating death numbers. But let's say the people had listened and nobody went and got tested. Everything would have stopped right there, because they wouldn't have had the case numbers, or they wouldn't have had a way to fabricate the case numbers, nor would they have had a way to fabricate the death numbers. Thus, they would have had no numbers. The state of South Dakota was one state that did not play that game. They didn't do any lockdowns. They didn't do any testing. And when the news started reporting numbers across the country, the state of South Dakota didn't even register. They didn't even show up on they didn't even budge, make the meter budge, because the people listened and they didn't go get tested and they didn't create the numbers. So the media manipulation, I say that to say this, the media manipulation is a very, very effective tool, because what it is it puts you in a certain mindset where you believe a certain set of ideals. And based on this belief that you have of these ideals will determine how you react to certain stimuli. This is why the media made us all believe that this thing was, the most deadly thing known to man. So when they said gag your kids, gag yourself, lock down your business, financially ruin yourself, et cetera, because people believed the narrative, they reacted in accordance. And this is why it's so important to think for yourself and hold firm to your own beliefs, right? Like one crazy thing that I personally believe is in flat earth. A lot of people don't believe in it. A lot of people think it's stupid. A lot of people think it's ridiculous. But if you really examine it, there's validity to the claim. And the reason why I believe that is because the people who believe in the round earth or the globe earth, and I'm just using this as an example, when you really break down the arguments, every argument pertaining to, in support of the heliocentric model, it goes back to believing the experts. When you really break it down to the molecule, it's all based on what someone else gave you. And that someone else just so happens to be a member of mainstream science. So what we saw in 2018 was this genre of flat earth content being suppressed and censored off YouTube throughout 2018 and 2019. Then comes 2020. All of a sudden we have the pandemic. What do these two things have in common? Well, here's what they have in common. The pandemic was being pushed by mainstream science and the so-called experts. The flat earthers up until 2018 and 2019 were openly questioning mainstream science and questioning and discrediting these experts. So that realm of speech had to be shut down in order to clear the way for the scientists, quote unquote, to maintain their credibility. So when it was time to make people, quote unquote, believe the experts, well, the experts still had credibility because the flat earthers weren't allowed to destroy their credibility. So it all goes back to making you believe so you can act. Because if you believe the experts, you're going to act in a way that's conducive to what the experts tell you to do, thus becoming a mental slave at that point. You lost the ability to think for yourself. You lost the ability to make your own decisions. You lost the ability to properly examine the data yourself, which is all public record. Thus, in essence, you've lost your balls. And America lost its balls in 2020. So everything is connected, and it all goes back to psychological warfare, programming the minds of the people to see things a certain way, to operate a certain way, and to react a certain way. When it comes to the, I'll just say the erection process, right? Let's put an R in there. The erection process. When it comes to that, a lot of people believe that everything is free and fair. So they willingly participate on both sides. And although they're mistaken in thinking that, they're not wrong for thinking that, because they should think that. They should be able to have, the free and fair process. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And once you realize that that's not the case, now you can go and you can examine these areas where these Democrats keep getting recycled over and over and over every election cycle. And you'll start to see that there's a lot of fakery that goes on when it comes to the process. There's a lot of disenfranchisement of people who hold opposing political beliefs. It's almost like they're being forced out of the process. I ran a video of a guy in Arizona, and the girl that he was with was talking about how when he went to go, cast his ballot in Arizona, they declared him an illegal immigrant and prevented him from doing, quote unquote, his civic duty. So there's a lot of funny business that goes on when it comes to this process, and all of the funny business usually comes from areas where Democrats control. And the reason why they have to do that is because their political ideology is not a political ideology at all, because it's not based in anything real or concrete. Everything a Democratic Party and the liberal establishment tells you, it contradicts itself in one way or another. They scream Black Lives Matter because white police are killing black men and black men are dying in the streets. But then when we say, how about all the black men that are killing each other in the streets? Those black lives don't matter? No, they don't. They scream my body, my choice when it's time for a woman to murder her own seed. But when it's time for us to choose whether we want to get stuck with some experimental sauce or not, my body, my choice goes out the window. They say they don't trust the government, but then they say, give up your guns because the government will protect you. You see how every freaking ideology, every idea that they espouse contradicts itself? That's because it's not a real political ideology. It's political propaganda is what it is. And people who fall for that political propaganda are nothing more than victims of that propaganda. And it's a sad thing to see, but there's a large portion of the population that's never going to wake up to that. And there's an even larger portion of the population that's been so disenfranchised with the political system because of all the corruption that they'll never get involved again. Thus, they've become neutralized in this political fight. And that's what the foreign agents want. They want more and more Americans to sit out the election process. So these foreign populations that they're bringing in will take over the election system, and they will rule the day. You know why in LA? You know why in LA half the city council is Hispanic? The cops are Hispanic. Do you know why? Because those people go out and they vote. They vote. while everybody else sits around and complains about whoever got voted in, what they're doing. Now, it's a double-edged sword though. It's a double-edged sword because it's very hard to change people's minds who've already decided to abandon the political system. And a lot of people who've abandoned the political system, they do so because they see the corruption, but what they're not aware of is the corruption. It appears to come from both sides, but really it's coming from one side. I have a video of a woman who is a state senator or a state representative from South Carolina. She's a Democrat, black woman. And she's on the phone with some prison inmate, and she tells this guy, we need people to run as the other side. We need sleepers, because if we can get our people in there on both sides, we could really change some shit from the inside, was her exact words. You know what she was saying? In other words, we need Democrats to run in Republican districts as Republicans, because this is how we can seize political power. Because in Republican districts, a Democrat candidate will always lose, but a Republican candidate has a chance of winning. And they've done it. And they've done it over and over again. The Dixiecrats did it when they started calling themselves Republicans once blacks got the right to vote nationally. You know why they did it? Because they knew that blacks were never going to vote for the party that oppressed them, the party of segregation, being the Democratic Party. So in order to maintain their political power, they started calling themselves Republicans because they knew the black vote was going to swing Republican. It's a very, very sick game. And on my stream last night, if you go check out my Rumble page, my most recent stream, I showed the abortion laws from 6 different states, 5 Democratic states, 1 Republican state, and in every state they saw massive. They passed massive expansions to abortion, allowing abortions to be carried out by more than just doctors, allowing abortions to be carried out by nurse practitioners, etc. And the reason why they did that is if they allow more people to do abortions, that means more women can get abortions. And all 5 Democrat governors passed these laws, and then there was 1 Republican governor, I believe it was from Vermont. He passed a similar law. And that's how you know who the infiltrators are. They run as Republicans who are supposed to be politically opposed to the Democratic Party. But when it's time to pass legislation, the legislation looks identical to what the Democrats are passing. So to the untrained eye of the public viewer, they see this as, oh, Democrats and Republicans are on the same, they're on the same page. They're pushing the same crap on us. So whether you vote for a Democrat or a Republican, you're going to get the same crap. But it's not so simple. It's not so simple, because if you go back and you look at some of these Republicans' voting records and what they voted on, if it aligns with what the Democrats voted on, then obviously they're not real Republicans. They're not there to forward the pro-America conservative agenda. They're there to forward the foreign agent Democrat agenda. I mean, how sick is it that you have an entire political party in the country convincing women to murder their own children, and since they've allowed it legally, we've had over 50 plus million Americans die. There's only about 350 million Americans in the country today, right? So that's 50 million more Americans we would have had. You know what I'm saying? That's 1/7 of the entire population that has been distinguished through abortion. And out of that 50 million, 20 million of them were black. That should tell you something. So the same political party that black voters vote for at an 88% rate is the same political party that's advocating for our women to murder our children. And it's a weird thing. I had this discussion, right, about morality. And we were talking about, the evil of men versus the evil of women. And a lot of ladies got upset with me about this, but if you really think about it, it makes perfect sense. Men have committed all kinds of evil throughout the world, right? From destroying nations, conquering lands, enslaving entire peoples, bombing countries, everything, every bit of evil you can probably think of. But you know what's one evil that men don't engage in? We don't kill our own damn children. We protect our own children. We protect our bloodlines, and we protect our offspring in general. But then when you look at the evil that's been sold to women, it's an even greater evil, because it takes a special kind of evil to kill your own kids. So even as a man that would bomb other countries and kill other people's kids, He won't kill his own kids. But here in America, we have not only women that are willing to do that to their own kids, but we have an entire political machine that advocates for it and demonizes anybody who dares speak out against it. And this is why our political system cannot be ignored, because our enemies who want to genocide us, who want to kill us, Black Americans have already been genocide, right? They use the political system to carry out their agenda. And when I say Black Americans have already been genocided, Black Americans have been in this country for centuries, if not thousands of years, because the Aboriginal folks believe that they're descended from Indians or whatever, and I believe there's some truth to that as well, right? So imagine you have a population of Black people in this country that have been here since the beginning of time, but somehow, some way, we remain at 13 to 15% of the population after all these centuries that we could have been reproducing, but somehow our numbers stagnate. But then when you look at other populations, like the Muslim population, for example, that population started to really explode in the 60s and 70s. And what happened was the Muslim population now is, I don't know the exact percentage, but the growth rate far exceeds the population growth rate of Black people. So, and the Hispanic population growth rate as well. So you have these foreign populations that came to this country, and their numbers are growing while our numbers remain stagnant. And if you look up the definition of genocide, wouldn't you know, it's not only the extermination of a complete group of people, but it's the control of the population group as well. So we have been effectively genocided, my friend. And this was all done at the behest of the Democratic Party. And I say this to people who don't want to get politically involved. I can't tell you, I can't force you to go vote. You're going to do whatever you want to do. But what I can tell you is those of you who are of a sharper mind, have deeper discernment than your relatives and your family members, the best that you can do for your nation is to educate them on who these politicians are and who they should vote for, or who they shouldn't vote for if they so choose to vote. Even if you don't vote, right? In the state of Florida, felons are allowed to vote. I have a felony on my record. I got a felony back in 2011. And I wasn't allowed to vote until they passed that law. I think it was like in 2015 or 2016 that allowed felons to vote again. But during that time when I wasn't able to vote, you know what I did? I became an advocate for other people to vote. I started assisting other people in learning the political system. I started assisting other people in understanding how to choose proper representation, how to vet these candidates, how to, make a wise decision when they go vote. So there's still a purpose that you can serve, because even if you personally don't want to get involved in the political system and you think abstaining from voting is the best thing for yourself, then I have nothing against you. My problem is completely ignoring the political system is where we go wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like just writing off everybody in politics as a bad guy and then just turning a blind eye to it. Because as you ignore the political system, your enemies are focused. They have their eyes dead set on taking over the American political system because they understand the power that comes with it. And this is why, and B Miles, I heard you guys talk about this before, how foreigners can come to this country and they get an easier time than people who've been here. They get all the grant money. They get to open up stores. They get access to the loans when, Black Americans who've been here forever don't.
Oh, yeah. It happened.
You know why that is?
I mean to interrupt. Yeah, man. Like I told everybody, man, that's why I put up that message in the chat, man, confirmation, because look what happened up in New York. They got bus in New York, and you mean to tell me that these illegal aliens get a whole new tent? They get couches, flat screen TVs, and Xboxes, and you mean to tell me get electricity, like 24/7 meals and food, but you got a homeless shelter across the street, and they barely got any heat or any good food? That's a slap in the face.
Right. They're doing all this for the illegal aliens in New York City. Mind you, New York City alone has a homeless population over 1 million souls. So when I tell you the Democratic Party is the party of foreign agents, you just take a look at the evidence and it all speaks for itself. I don't have to say anymore. They're the party of foreign agents. They're the party that's here to destroy America, destroy Americans' lives, coddle a new population to come in to replace us, and do so all the while pretending to be our friends. That whole socialism, communism crap that they talk about equality and all that, they're not about equality. Look at the way the Democratic Party treats black men. You don't
Yep.
get no shine as a straight black man in the Democratic Party. The only way the
Not at all.
Democratic Party will promote you is if you take dick. That's it.
It's a fact.
If you ain't taking dick, you can't come in this club, G. Tell me I'm lying.
No, no voting, no fucking. And look who they had up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Saucy Santana and Trink. Look at that bullshit.
Exactly. And you know what's crazy, bro? I'm glad you brought that up because I was covering the rash of dead rappers that we had over the last couple of years, right? And I discovered the peasant insurance. Corporate owned life insurance is one reason why a lot of these rappers are getting killed, because their music isn't profitable anymore. So when they kill them off, the life insurance, the labels take out life insurance on them and they cash in the life insurance. And not only do they cash in the life insurance, then you have a dead rapper, their name's all in the headlines. Now their music gets promoted. Now their music becomes profitable. Also, if you look at all the rappers that got killed, every single one of them were what? Straight black men.
Yep.
And now you see a wave of what? Female rappers and gay rappers, because they're clearing the way for the LGBT rappers, for the Saucy Santanas and the Lil Nas X's. Because it
Yep.
wasn't until Lil Nas X started blowing up on the scene that rappers started getting killed every damn month.
You know what? That's real shit. I never looked at it that that was a sign right there. Time to kill off the masculinity, a whole new agenda. That is right.
There it
Go
is.
ahead, brother.
That's why YouTube, it's an attack on masculinity is what it is. That's why YouTube removed Tommy Sotomayor. That's why they removed Andrew Tate and guys like that were giving men game, teaching men how to be men, teaching women how to be women. Yeah, Tommy had a little bit of toxicity with his presentations, but if you listen to what the man was saying, he was dropping gems. You know what I'm saying? He was pointing out some real major flaws in our people, especially, that need to be addressed, because these flaws are destroying the community. You know what I'm saying? Like this embracing of homosexuality. I don't know if you noticed, but every black show on TV is got it's got rainbow implications in it. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yep.
always something pertaining to the rainbow. There's hardly ever a black show on TV where you see straight black men doing straight man stuff. And it's almost like this homosexual agenda is being sold to black men in particular. You know what I'm saying? Like, name one white male celebrity who's all on social media parading his son around because he's turning him into a girl. Name one.
None.
Bingo. Bingo. So you know it's aimed at us. And this is why the small hats that Kanye called out, that Kyrie called out, this is why they're so mad, because they're the ones behind the programming, not the people themselves, the elites. That's why Ye called them, businessmen in his I think it was the Piers Morgan or the Drink Champs interview, one of them, because he was differentiating between those people as a whole versus this small group of elites who control the media. And the sad thing is, you see the Democratic Party promoting black women, you see the Democratic Party promoting gay black men, but
Yep.
straight black men get pushed aside because they're removing masculinity from the black community. And the
Mhm.
reason why they're removing masculinity from the black community is because black male masculinity is starting to make a comeback. They got the
Mhm.
whole no simping movement and all that now, and black men are actually starting to wake up and not fall for the games and the trick bags no more, not get themselves suckered into marriages that end up leading them to financial ruin. Do you know that in this current day and age, black men control more wealth, minus the celebrities? This is just the average, working man, business owners, the average nobodies. Black men control more wealth collectively today than any other generation of black men in the past. Did you know that?
Wow, really?
Yep. If you look up the white man's average net worth, I think it's like 11 or 12,000, and the average black man's net worth is right neck and neck with the average white man's net worth. So, but then when you look at the women's net worth, I think white women is at like the average white woman's net worth is like I think a little less than black males. I think it's like 7 or 8,000. And then when you look at black women's net worth, it's $5. So this says that economically, black women are the least powerful group of people, right? So how do you perpetuate corruption in a political party? You take the least powerful group of people, you elevate them to positions of power, and what happens when you take somebody who's used to being powerless and give them ultimate power? They become corrupt. And it's a sad thing to see because they're playing off of the desperation of our people. You see, they set these the Democratic Party politically, they set these policies, these economic policies that create impoverished conditions in black neighborhoods. So you have these little black boys and little black girls growing up with nothing, just hoping for a chance to catch a break. So what do? The little black boys, they get suckered into the music industry and then they become tools and puppets of the Illuminati. They get suckered into the sports industry and then they become tools and puppets of the Illuminati and slaves, like Kyrie Irving just proved. Um, the black women, they go into the universities and they get college degrees and they get positions of power in government and industry, things like that. And the average hardworking straight black man that's blue collar, that's doing what the black plumber, he doesn't get no shine. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? He can make $250,000 a year and he still gets called dusty. And it's all being done to put the powerless in power so they can become tyrannical over the men. You know what I'm saying? And it's a sad dynamic because what it's doing is it's causing division between black men and black women, which is making it even harder to rebuild the family. And having the family destroyed means there's going to be a bunch of lost children that the system can now indoctrinate and turn into minions for their future operations. So how do we fix this, right? The only way to fix it is to, as a man, start putting your foot down and not tolerate the liberal bullshit. As a woman, the way you fix it is to think this shit through when you start being exposed to this propaganda and go with what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I mean, differentiate between what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I'll give you an example. There's this thing in 304 culture where these women like to use men, right? They like to pretend to like the man and have his child. I mean, not have his child, but have him be their boyfriend and have him do things for them and this and that when they really don't like him. And then when they find another target, they move on to him. And this ain't just black women. This is all women, right? This applies to all women. And what I see is black men in particular being one of the most outspoken groups of people who call out this 304 culture. Women trying to use men, and they're the ones trying to put men up on game and educate them to not tolerate this kind of crap from women, right? So in response, what happens is the females that are pushing the 304 culture, they start attacking these men and demonizing them and saying they hate women and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And the problem never gets solved because the good women that don't participate in the 304 culture and aren't looking at men as resources, but looking at men as partners in this thing we call life, they tend to stay silent and they don't really say much. I don't know if it's for fear of bullying or what the case may be.
It's that
But
feminism bullying bullshit.
yeah, I think that's what it is because women have bigger egos than men, believe it or not. And they don't like to be rejected and they don't like to be bullied.
Yes.
And if you're a guy and you ever had a girl key your car for breaking up with her, you know what I'm talking about. That takes a big ego, boy. But it's all being done to keep the men and the women divided. And the programming is more aimed at the women because the women are they're more easily tricked simply because it's a female's nature to be more in touch with her emotions than it is for a man. So as long as they can sell the propaganda in an emotional way, more women are going to buy it than men. So the men have to be forced out of these positions of power because they're more likely to question the propaganda than the women are. And I'll prove it to you how women are more susceptible. Have you ever heard of a man being wooed with music? Have you ever heard of a woman playing romantic music to get a man's attention? I've never heard of it, but I've heard of men doing it to women and it working, right? So there's proof positive right there. You hit the right chords in a woman, and you know, if if you hit the right keys for a woman, she will do whatever you want her to do. Just like if a woman hits the right keys with a man, although the keys are different, she can get him to do whatever she wants him to do. And the system they play on this phenomenon between male and female nature, and they use it as a tool for division. So women want men for resources, men want women for sex. So what do? They encourage men to, spend their lives amassing resources rather than building with a woman and creating a family from scratch. And then they encourage women to chase after men who have these resources rather than building resources with a man from scratch. So they eliminate the possibility of a family even happening because the women want the guy that's already at the finish line while they're still at the starting line. And the guys that are still at the starting line, you know, they get no play from the women at the starting line because they haven't made it to the finish line. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
and it
mm. Mhm.
and it's a big shift now because back in the 90s there was a lot of black men going to prison for crimes, you know what I'm saying? Even though they were minute crimes, they were getting big sentences because of the crime bill. So the problem with the black family at that point, I believe, was with the men not being able to provide in a legal manner and rather exposing themselves to the corrupt legal system by trying to provide for their families through crime. So we failed our women in that sense. But what happened is since then, now that we're in the current time now and black men have resources collectively to build families, for some reason the families still aren't happening. But then when you look at the propaganda machine and what they're pumping out, what you see is the women being corrupted now. So the men were first corrupted, and now we've done because after all those years of women going on TV and saying, black men ain't this and black men is dusty and they're not educated, we've gotten educated. We've shaken that dust off. We've built resources. We ain't broke no more. We're paying bills, we're maintaining our households, we're building the nest, we're doing everything necessary to be to make ourselves good husbands. But for some reason, we still can't be husbands. So now you got to look at the women and what they're being taught and what they're being sold. You know what I'm saying? And because this problem has been perpetuated for generations and generations, young women can't go to their mothers for advice on how to keep a man because mama ain't got no man. They can't go to grandmama to get advice on how to keep a man because grandma ain't got no man. So who's going to advise them? So now we find ourselves in this generation trying to figure things out all over again. So it's incumbent upon us, whether it comes to social life, love, politics, whatever the case, it's incumbent upon us to find our own way, figure it out, so that way we can be those elders that we never had, that our children can come to, and we can put them up on game. Our sons can come talk to us as men, and we can teach them how to be men. Our daughters can go talk to their mothers as women, and they can teach them how to be women. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a generational reversal. But the politics is also important because if we keep giving power to the political party that wants to keep us divided, that propaganda machine is never going to get shut down. You feel what I'm saying? The Democratic Party is all about um, women's empowerment. Women's empowerment is one of the biggest lies ever sold to women because their idea of women's empowerment is a woman being enslaved to a corporation rather than being partnered with her husband. Their idea of women's empowerment is a woman having the right to kill her own children rather than being given resources to help take care of her children. Women's empowerment is living their lives chasing after money rather than finding love. You know what I'm saying? And these are toxic lies that have been sold to not just our women, but women everywhere. And these toxic lies have become so pervasive that people actually hold them to be true.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Beyonce.
saying? Like I was talking to this girl, right? And she was, well, she's not a girl. We're in our 30s. And she was telling me about some guy that she was, she was seeing in the past years ago. And she was like, he just ghosted me out of nowhere, right? So I was like, why do you think that is? And she was like, I don't know. I thought everything was cool. And then she started explaining to me the details of the relationship, right? The What she said was she really liked him, he really liked her, but they never really made a commitment to each other. So they were just, messing around for about 2 years straight. And so I asked her, I said, why didn't you ever ask him for a commitment? And she was like, well, he kept promising it, but he never did it. So I just hung in there hoping that one day he would do it. I said, up, you got played. And here's why you got played. You got played because first, you gave him the box without commitment, which let him know now in his mind, this is the type of woman that gives it up and doesn't require commitment, which means she'll give it up to anybody. So I can't see her as nothing more than just this now. So that was your first mistake. Your second mistake was hanging in there and coming back rather than putting your foot down and saying, this is what I need from you before we continue on. So now he can't see you as anything more than just, a smash buddy because you didn't require commitment. So he's not going to give it to you. Then when it came to her getting ghosted, I explained to her, here's what happened. He met a woman, another woman that he liked because he's not cheating on you. You're not his girl. And that woman required commitment from him. And in order for him to make that commitment to her, he had to cut you off. But maybe he was too cowardly to tell you. So he ghosted you. And that's what he did. And I can say that safely because that's what I would do. You feel me? And this is a woman that's extremely intelligent. Like, I mean, it's mind blowing how smart this woman is. And it was amazing to me that she hadn't figured that out yet. So then I got to thinking, this is why so many women have a hard time finding viable men for relationships. And when they do find viable men to have relationships with, the men end up not wanting relationships. This is why, because they give it up too easy because they're being taught that this is how you keep a man, by giving up the box. That's not how you keep a man. You keep a man by making him respect you. Any man that requires you to give up the box in order for him to even continue talking to you, that's not a respectable man, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've turned women down for shit like that. Like women that I actually liked and wanted to be in a relationship with. She tried to throw the box at me too quick. I cut her and the box off. Cause now I'm like, I'm not looking for a booty call. And if you make yourself a booty call, I can never make you my wife. You feel me? So now I got to let you go and give you this game and give you this lesson. So when you meet the next guy that you like, you don't make the mistake with him that you made with me. You feel me? And this is how we teach each other. But the problem is with men and women, the men don't want to hear from the women and the women don't want to hear from the men. So when a guy like me get to talking like this, women get upset with me, you know? And when women who, speak like this from a woman's perspective, men get upset with them. But it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? And we've been so divided that we should, as men and women, we should be able to understand the psychology of each other so we can understand how to properly interact with each other. But we don't understand each other's psychology because we're raised in homes where we don't see regular interactions between mom and dad and see how they work through their problems. What most of us see is mama with a boyfriend, mama and her boyfriend argue, they had a problem, then next month there's a new boyfriend. That's what we grow up seeing. So we never learn conflict resolution. We never learn proper communication skills. We never learn just basic life skills that would help us become more conducive to healthy relationships, thus healthy families. It's just a cesspool of toxicity. You feel me? And this is something that this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, aside from the politics, because I'm a guy. I have two kids by two different women. My daughter is 12 years old, and I have a son that's 3 years old. That's a little fella that was just crying and fussing a few minutes ago. And both of my children were the result of failed relationships, or as I would call it, failed attempts at starting a family. And they were mistakes that I made, and they were mistakes that their mothers made. But in retrospect and looking back on it and thinking back on things that we both could have done differently in each situation, I've realized the mistakes that I made. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if those women realize the mistakes that they made, but I hope they have, because now I'm in a situation where I'm dealing with a woman and she's a really good woman, and I'm actually able to value that, and I'm actually able to recognize that because I've dealt with enough bad ones. You feel what I'm saying? And what makes this person so unique is she's actually, unlike most other women that I've dated, she's actually willing to listen. And it's not like I'm older than her or she's, way younger than me. Like, we're the same age, but she's actually willing to listen to what I tell her, because from the things that I've experienced, I've learned a lot. And obviously, there's things that she still hasn't learned, but she can't learn them from anybody else around her because there's nobody there to teach her, because her mother is one of those women that can't find no man, can't keep a man. So she can't learn shit about how to have a relationship from her mother, but as a man, I see it as an opportunity to at least educate her and help her grow as an individual and become more wifely in the way she conducts herself. And it's an awesome feeling when you got a good woman by your side that's, that you can say, I would marry this woman and I don't ever have to worry about divorce or getting raked over the coals in court, having my kids taken, and none of that shit. It's a beautiful feeling. And I wish that everybody could experience that. But the problem is we don't know how to communicate. I've witnessed horror stories where men have a problem with telling women how they really feel. A lot of men are afraid to tell their women how they really feel. There's a lot of men in relationships right now that can't stand that woman, but they don't know how to tell her how they really feel or what she does to offend them, because the minute they try to, she gets offended and then things become toxic. And I've seen men lose their entire family simply for trying to express to their woman how they feel and what was bothering them in the relationship. So facing those prospects, most men in relationships, they think of it like this: if she's not going to be understanding and she's not going to be willing to listen, and me telling her how I feel is going to ruin my relationship, I want this relationship, so I'm just going to suffer in silence and keep it to myself. And this is how you end up with so many relationships and marriages where the husbands are miserable. I haven't met one married man over the age of 50 that said, yeah, being married is great, I love it, everybody should do it. I haven't met one. Have you, B Miles? I guess he's not there. Guess he stepped away. But needless to say, I say that to say this: all these societal issues that we have in relationships and interactions between men and women, it all started with the feminist, democratic, liberal propaganda that was fed to our grandmothers and our great grandmothers so long ago, and has been perpetuated from generation to generation to generation. And now we finally reached a point where our entire community is on the brink of total and utter destruction. Right. And something's got to be done about it. And the only thing that we can do about it is, one, we can start by becoming wiser people in our own individual lives by doing the research, confirming, debunking information, not just blindly believing anything. Two, being more willing to listen, more open to correction, being more attentive to each other's needs and each other's feelings. Three, even if you can't be with the person that you have kids with, have a friendship, have a good relationship with the person you have kids with. Don't force that man to have to take you to court so he can see his kid every other weekend. And men do the same thing. Don't force that woman to have to go to court and put your ass on child support. You take that $40 over there like you're supposed to. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we start. We just start by making a conscious effort to be better people. And once we start being better people to ourselves, we'll become better people to each other. And once we become better people to each other, we'll be better people to our kids. And that's going to ultimately end up with a whole new generation of brand new young minds that are free thinkers, that are extremely intelligent, and they have a wealth of knowledge in us, their parents and their aunts and their uncles and their older siblings, that they can always call on to help them through life. Because there's nothing worse than, you know, going from being a young man living under your parents' roof and being sheltered and being protected and having everything you need and being secure, to getting thrown out in the world and you don't know what to do with yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of no woman. And if you can't take care of no woman, you can kiss your dreams of having a family goodbye. Sure, you might find a woman that might let you hit it raw and get pregnant and give you a baby or two, but she ain't gonna stay with you if you can't provide shit. She ain't gonna stay with you if you can't give her a nest. You know, and whether you have a family or not, as a man, it is your purpose to make sure that you keep a roof over your head and you're able to maintain a household. And if you're not doing that, you're not ready for no relationship, because that's the basic. That's like trying to have a relationship as a man, as a grown man, and not having your own space in your own household. It's the same as going to a car dealership looking to buy a new car, but you don't even have a driver's license. There's certain things, certain pieces that need to be put in place before you take the next step. And the first piece that you got to put in place is you have to be stable and you have to have a nest. Besides, how you gonna smash if you ain't got nowhere to smash at, stupid? Yo, shh, keep it down. My roommate's next door. Nah, she ain't trying to hear all that. She trying to scream. And you got to have your own space, because one, that sets a standard. No matter if it's, if it's a fly house or it's a little project apartment, it don't matter. As long as it's your space and you're maintaining it and you don't need nobody's help to take care of that shit, a woman will respect you for that alone. And you know what's going to happen? She's going to want to come to your place all the time. Then she's going to start sleeping over at your place all the time. And then you're going to find yourself wondering if you should move her in. And then before you know it, you got you a wife and a family, and now y'all looking to buy a house. But it all starts with you as a man being able to provide for yourself, because that demonstrates to any potential female that you might want to partner with that I am capable of doing this. So if you join me in this journey, we can do more together, because look what I've done on my own. You feel what I'm saying? But a lot of men don't see it that way. A lot of men don't see it that way because they think they got to have the BMWs and the 6-bedroom mansion and the gold chains and the diamond watches to really find a wife and find love. Nah, don't work like that. The best time for a man to find his wife is before he becomes wealthy. Because if she gets with you and she marries you while you're broke, that means she loves you for you. But once you become wealthy and you're unmarried and you're now looking to get married, now you run the risk of having to sift through all the gold diggers. So you actually put yourself at a disadvantage at that point. That's why a lot of wealthy men who are bachelors remain that way, because they know this. And by broke, I don't mean like, having nothing. By broke, I mean average working class. I only use the word broke because I'm comparing it to super wealthy people. So don't confuse the two. But it all stems from the Democratic propaganda. It's all propaganda, and it's all meant to mislead you, misguide you, distract you, and make you believe things that aren't true. So you act in ways that aren't conducive to what you really want. They tell you, go to college, get your degree, and you'll get a good job. And look how many people got college degrees and they're still struggling. Now they're talking about student loan. Now they're talking about student loan forgiveness. You know what student loan forgiveness should tell us all? That should tell us all that college degrees aren't worth dick. You know why? Because if college degrees were worth something, the student loans would be paying themselves off with all the high-paying jobs that they promised you. But obviously, those high-paying jobs don't exist. That's why everybody's saddled with this debt now. It's a bad investment at this point. It used to be, going to college used to be a good thing. It used to be viable, but now it's a bad investment. It's a bad investment. And all the money that you would borrow going to school, if you borrowed that money and put it into a business, as opposed to the college freshman that's borrowing $20,000 to go to school, and you took that $20,000 at the same day he enrolled and put that shit in a business, by the end of that 4 years, when he graduates with no experience and a degree, you'll be having a viable business, employees, 3-4 years of tax returns, which allows you access to much bigger loans. I'm talking $1 million loans. And you'll also have 4 years of experience, not only in the field that you operate in, but 4 years of management experience. So let's say for some reason your business fails. Let's say when the pandemic hit and then you live in a place where the government was forcing people to shut their businesses down. You shut your business down, you lost your business. Now you got 4 years of management experience from running your own company. You build a resume and you can go get a job at another company starting at the top without a college degree, because most companies, they don't care about the degree. What they care about is the experience. So let's say the guy with the degree and no experience comes in, applies for the same job as you, but you got the experience. You know who's going to get that job? You're going to get that job. Well, of course, as long as you sell yourself right in the interview, but you're more likely to get that job because the company will see you as more of an asset, more of a valuable asset, because you've been there, you've done that. You know what it's like managing employees because you've done it. You know what it's like managing the books because you've done it. You know what it's like operating a business because you've done it. So it's very easy to go from business ownership, if that doesn't work out, to slip right into the corporate world in a management position. And from that management position, you can go right back into business again, because you'll be getting paid, you'll be making a bit more money, so you'll be able to invest those resources back into yourself and start over. Now, when I say college degrees aren't worth it, there's only specific. And shout out to the brother, Modern Renaissance Man. He says, unless you're going to college to major in something to have a legit career, it is worthless. Yes, that's it. The STEM field is still viable in terms of college degrees, because in science, technology, engineering, and math, you actually learn things that you can apply to the real world. Like in the mathematics field, right? Let's say you get a mathematics degree, you study trigonometry, you studied geometry, you studied calculus, you studied all kinds of math equations. Now you can calculate angles, you can calculate heights, widths, lengths, you can measure objects without measuring tools, things like that. So these are useful tools that you can use. In the science and technology, you understand how the human body works, you understand how machines operate, you understand how things are built. So now you're able to utilize that skill in creating a life for yourself, because there's always somebody out there that needs those services that doesn't have that skill. You feel me? Vocational schooling, the vocational degrees, the blue collar, the trades, that's where the most money is right now. But if you listen to the media propaganda, they'll frame it as if going to college is the way to be. Mind you, the college graduate is making 50,000 a year, saddled with $150,000 worth of debt. He's upside down right now, as opposed to the plumber who's been in business for 4 years. He's making $150,000 a year and has little to no debt. And guess who that plumber is making his money off of? Those same idiot college graduates that didn't learn any real skills, but saddled themselves with all this debt to make 50,000 a year, but they don't know how to change a freaking drain. And funny thing is, ladies and gentlemen, this is why the plumbers, the pool guys, the gardeners, they end up smashing rich guys' wives, because women are turned on by men who can do shit. Just so you know. So get a trade. Get a trade. That's my suggestion. If you're single, you're lonely, you're in the market, go get a trade. Learn the skill and show a woman you can do some shit. Give yourself some value. That whole high value man nonsense, I think that's nonsense too. Because a man's value is not determined by how much money he has. A man's value is determined by his capability. Now, granted, having money gives you more capability, but you don't have to have money to have capability. I gave you an example. I went to tech school right out of high school. I became a certified mechanic at the age of 17. My mother wanted me to go to college. I did go to college for a little while, but I dropped out afterwards and I went back to doing mechanic work. My mother was a school teacher making $70,000 a year. My dad was an operations manager making $85,000 a year. But you know who was the most valuable person in that household after I got my mechanic certification? I was. You know why? Because when their cars broke down and they couldn't get to their $85,000 a year job or their $70,000 a year job, guess who they called? Me. So who had the value there? Was it them or was it me? Because if I said no to them, they wouldn't have their jobs. Thus, their value evaporates because they don't have that income anymore. So high value individual, because it's not just high value men, there's high value women too. A high value individual has nothing, in my opinion, has nothing to do with financial status. It has more to do with your capability, physical capabilities, mental capabilities, skills, training, and the ability to get things done. So don't let that Kevin Samuels, and I like Kevin. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. Rest in peace to that brother. But don't let the Kevin Samuels model fool you. That high value man definition that Kevin came up with, that was his own thing. And that's the beauty of free thought. Each man can come up with his own ideas and apply his own ideas to his own life. And Kevin Samuels' idea, it worked for him. My idea works for me. So you come up with something that works for you, and don't fall into the hive mind, don't fall into the Borg mind, don't ever follow trends. And another word of advice, and I'm gonna wrap it up here, B Miles. Don't ever buy anything you see advertised on TV. And that's all I have to give you guys tonight. Brother Miles, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, man. Yeah, man. I definitely want to say thank you, Citizen Man, my brother, man. It's been definitely good chat, man. Definitely really good stream. It's been 185 people inside of the chat, my brother. And like I said, I definitely want to say thank you, Sister Iman. You can put all of the links to Citizen Man's YouTube channel, but also his Rumble channel, and also to people that like to donate to the brother. He's been putting out great information. He's been following me for quite some time, so I definitely will say like, share, and subscribe, the live stream, share this, and also the link right here is in the chat right there to Citizen Man, that is on Rumble, the YouTube channel, and also to donate to the brother as well. So, like I said, I definitely appreciate you up also too, Sister Iman, and also you definitely will be rewarded as well. So, like I said, Citizen Man's info is right there. It's right there, family. So you cannot say that you missed it. I'm gonna leave it right there in the chat before we close out. And like I said, though, fam, any more remarks, my brother? What you good?
Yeah, just in terms of finding my content, I've been banned off YouTube 16 times in the last 2 years. So now in my latest channel, what I do is I live stream every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to catch the live streams on YouTube, that's the time to catch me over on Citizen Man TV, Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 10:30 p.m. But right after the stream is over, to avoid getting my channel zapped, I delete the stream and then I put up a short video directing people over to the Rumble page where all the streams are archived. So the last few channels that I lost, all the live streams that were deleted from YouTube are actually available over on Rumble. So if you guys want to get, really get the in-depth content, get more Citizen Man, Rumble is where you have to go. And when you want to catch me live and get in the chat or whatever and interact with me directly, Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 10:30 p.m. on Citizen Man TV on YouTube.
Okay, all right, my brother. Like I said, I appreciate you once again. And like I said, though, family, it's been a good live stream. So one love once again, family. Peace out. You have a good night.
Peace. Appreciate you having me on, man.
No doubt. Peace.